Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 61. Very interesting daf. 61a. Let's see here. Zevachim. 61a is a really small daf. If I'm seeing this correctly, it's one of those really super short amudim. There's one in Bava Kama, I think it's on Ayin Zion. The amount of words on the Amud are like 9 words. I think it's 9 words because it's a huge Tosfos. It's like takes up the whole thing. See here, 61a. Yes, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 19 words. Today's the 19th event, by the way, which is interesting. 19 words in the whole Amud. Wow. Nice. So I think we were running short on time, but looks like with an Amud like this, Okay, well, here we are. Zevachim 61a on the top. The Amud has 19 words. Okay. The first Braita is in accordance with the opinion of Yishmael, who derives that meat of a firstborn offering, which is an offering of lesser sanctity, cannot be consumed if the altar is damaged or absent, based upon the halacha pertaining to the blood of the firstborn. That second Braita is in accordance with the opinion of the sages who disagree with Rabbi Yishmael. And if you wish, say, there is a different resolution of the two Braitos. Both this Braita and that Braita are referring to offerings of the most sacred order. And what does the second Braita mean when it says the food may be consumed in 2 locations? It is referring to when the Israelites arrived at a new camp, before the Levites erect the tabernacle. But now we turn to 61b. On the top. And when they are leaving the camp, after the Levites dismantle the tabernacle, but before they remove the altar, since the altar has not yet been moved, it is still permitted to consume the sacrificial food. And we're on now 61b. The Gemara continues, it was necessary to state this halacha, lest you say that once the partitions surrounding the courtyard have been taken down, the sacrificial food has been disqualified because it is considered to have left the courtyard of the tabernacle. Therefore, the Braita teaches us that the food is permitted for consumption as long as the altar remains in place. The Gemara challenges and say it is indeed so, that the sacrificial food should be disqualified because it is no longer within the partitions surrounding the courtyard. The Gemara explains, the verse states, then the tent of meeting shall travel. Numbers 2:17. This verse indicates that even though it traveled, it is still considered the tent of meeting. Therefore, the sacrificial food is not considered to have left its designated area. Shel Shiloh, Shel Avadim Haya. Titania. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Hamer. Ma Tavlova Avanim. Avanim Shalosh Pamim. Echad Shel Shiloh, Echad Shel Nov V'Gion, Ubeit Olamim. The Gemara raises another discussion concerning the altar. Rav says, the altar in Shiloh was fashioned of stones, unlike the portable altar constructed in the time of Moses, which was fashioned from copper. This is, as it is taught in a Braita, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, why must the verse state that the altar must be fashioned from stones in Exodus 20:22, and state again that the altar must be fashioned from stones in Deuteronomy 27:5, I mention yet again the word stones in Deuteronomy 27, verse 6. With regard to the altar, for a total of 3 times. These allude to 3 different stone altars. One in Shiloh, one in Nov and Givon, and one in the eternal house, meaning the temple. ואש יורד בימי שלמה לו, נסתלק עד שבא מנשה וסילקו. ואם ייתה מקרא הוא סתלק לי. Rav Acha bar Ami raises an objection based on the right. The fire that descended from heaven upon the altar in the days of Moses, Leviticus 9:24, departed from atop the copper altar only in the days of Solomon, when he replaced the copper altar with a stone altar. And the fire that descended upon the altar in the days of Solomon did not depart until Manasseh came and removed it by destroying the altar. And if it is so that the altar in Shiloh was fashioned of stones, it emerges that the fire departed the copper altar earlier, when the stone altar in Shiloh replaced the copper altar of Moses many years before King Solomon. Or explained, Rav Huda stated his opinion in accordance with the statement of Rabbi Natan. As it is taught in a Braita, the Rabbi Natan says, the altar in Shiloh was fashioned of copper. It was hollow and full of stones. Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak amar, Mai lo nistalga levatala, Mai Rabbanan amri, sheviva haba mishadra, Rav Papa amar, ushpiza hava nakat bezimnin hacha. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says there is an alternative answer. What is the meaning of the statement in the Braita that the fire did not depart until the days of Solomon? It means that it did not depart in a manner in which it was nullified. It was still somewhat present in Shiloh on the copper altar, which stood together with the stone altar. The Gemara asks, what is it meaning? What does it mean that the fire did not depart in a manner in which it was nullified? The Gemara answers, the rabbis say, the fire on the copper altar would have been sparks toward the stone altar when the priest would sacrifice offerings on the stone altar. Rav Papa says the fire was as a guest. Sometimes it was here on the copper altar, and sometimes it was there on the stone altar. Tananasam, Ucheshe'alu b'nei hagola הוסיפו עליו 400 מן הדרום ו400 מן המערב כמין גמא מאי תימה אמר רבי יוסף משום דלא ספק. The Gemara continues discussing the altar. We learned in a Mishnah there in Midot 35b. The altar in the first temple was 28 by 28 cubits. When the members of the exile ascended to Jerusalem in the beginning of the second temple period, they added 4 cubits to it on the south and 4 cubits on the west sides of the altar, like the shape of the Greek letter gamma, meaning the additions made a right angle. And as a result, the altar in the second temple was 32 by 32 cubits. The Gemara asks, what was the reason for this expansion? Yehoshua said, because the size of the altar from the first temple was not sufficient. אמר לאביי השתא מקדש ראשון הכסיב יהודה וישראל רבים כחול אשר עשותם שתק מקדש שני הכסיב כל הקהל כאחד על מעריבו לא ספק. אמר לה הטעם אש של השמיים מסייתן אכה אין אש של השמיים מסייתן. Abaye said to him, now, if in the first temple era, about which is written, Judah and Israel were many days to descend, it is by the sea, 1 Kings 4:20. The altar was sufficient. How could it be that in the second temple era, about which is written, the whole congregation together was 42,360? Ezra 2:64, the altar was not sufficient. Meaning it should have definitely been sufficient. Rabbi Yosef said to Abaye, there in the first temple, a heavenly fire system that consumed the offerings. Here, in the second temple, there was no heavenly fire that would assist them, therefore they needed a larger area in which to burn the offerings. Kiyatan Ravin, Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi, Mishum bar kapara. Shitin ha'isipu meikore savo mizbach adama shu atum badama. When Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Babylonia, he reported that which Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi says in the name of Bar Kapara with regard to the expansion of the altar. They expanded the altar to extend over the underground cavities into which the libations flowed. Initially, in the first temple era, they held that when the verse states, an altar of earth you shall make for me, Exodus 20:21, it means that it should be completely filled with earth, basalt savur, shtiya achila, umay mizbach adama, shuhu mechubar b'adama, shelo yivnenu lo al gabe kipim. But ultimately, in the second temple era, they maintained that the altar's drinking is like its eating. Meaning, just as the offerings are burned on the altar, so too the libations must be poured onto the altar itself and not down its side. Consequently, they expanded the altar to cover the underground cavities and created holes in the altar so that libations could be poured on top of the altar and flow into the underground cavities. And according to this, what is the meaning of the phrase an altar of earth? It teaches that the altar must be attached to the earth so that one may not build it on top of arches.